Hey guys, yeah, I'm on a break, but I wanted to tie together a few loose ends, um, as we head into the final stretch of the year, so everybody could ramp up their trades and their posts and get really strong here in the next month. Even though it's going to be a short month because of the holidays for most everybody. We want to hit 2018 with our, full speed. So a couple of things, and this comes from observations, and I'm seeing more and more of this. So I just want to make it clear, and I want you to take a look at this because this will be directed at some of you, and you need to see if it's you, and then make these corrections. So the first thing I want to talk about today are scans and forks on the chart. So I put together a quick chart to show you some of the kinds of things I'm seeing. Um, First of all, let's talk about the scan. Um, the first thing I will say is that when you see a scan looks like this, and we see them posted all the time, it's hard to see it, it's hard to read it, and guess what's going to happen with your 10 pip line and your stop loss and your 15% line? It's going to be very tight. So the first thing we need to do is, if we're doing quick fire trades or Charlie Delta forks, is we need to make this stretched out. It's compressed right now based on how you loaded the chart. So to stretch it out, all you do is bring your cursor over to the price field, click and expand. And then you can come down and click and expand and then recenter your chart. Now notice my scan is getting taller, and now I'm stretching it the other way. Now I'm going to grab down here in the price field and just stretch it this way. And now I have a nice big scan where when we start putting lines and numbers in here, we're going to be able to see it. You're going to be able to mark it up, and you could even make it bigger if you want. It's your choice. We just can't have scans being posted that look like this. It's really hard to understand what's going on. You're not getting a good impression on what's going on and how to trade it and whatnot. So let's make them look like a scan's supposed to look. Okay. Second thing is, I've encouraged everybody to use black backgrounds, and we have some hidden reasons for that. One, it is easier on the eyes if you spend a lot of time on the charts. The second is for those people who do advance, and we already have, our group of 10, although it's a little bigger than that, who have, upgraded to, we've just right now called them as CD10. It's going to end up being, I think, one of two names, but right now we're just calling it CD10. And they're going to be doing harmonic wave convergence and whatnot. And those indicators are black. And so if you're using a white background, those indicators aren't going to work really good on your charts if you're going to move over to those other groups. So as such, with the black background, we can't be using colors like purple and blue. First of all, I'm not colorblind, but I know some people are. And so if you're colorblind, this, I don't know if this is hard for you to see or not, but for me it is. And again, when I start looking at 50, 100 charts a day, it's rather bothersome. So the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure your scans stand out. Now you don't have to use the absolute, banana yellow that is used at IML and make them just really bright like that. Okay, you don't have to make it so bright. They could be yellow and still be, at least visible. And so now when you look at it, you can at least see what's going on. Okay. The second thing, with pitchforks, same thing. We don't want to see any pitchforks that have this flat look. I've seen so many of them. And then at that, you've got warning lines turned on when you don't even need the warning lines on. Okay, it's just very distractive. If you're going to need warning lines, put them on. Second thing, again, I don't really know, the reasoning for background shading, other than on a white chart, it does make it look a little pretty and cute, but on black charts, it doesn't. It doesn't. And so the first thing we're going to do is get these background. Whoops, I'm still on the scan. Get over here in the fork. I always use my 10. So here, let's just turn off the background color first of all so that we don't have these purple and blue zones on the chart. Okay. And again, if you're going to use them on a white chart, I would make them very faint. Again, you have control here on how dark you want those channels. And if you like the little color there because it looks nicer to you for some reason, you want to notice as it jumps from quad to quad or fibonacci to fibonacci, that's fine. But on a black chart, they just don't work. Okay. So I turn them off on the black chart. Second thing is, um, unless you're using the warning lines, turn them off, right? But let's go to something else first. Let's go get the color of the fork first of all and the lines on the fork. So I would rather make them a brighter color. Now, what we do and have done at my PIP Club group for a long time now, almost 10 years, is we like to use color coding for the chart that was drawn. So essentially for a 60-minute, 15-minute chart, 30-minute, we have a color scheme. And I'm not saying you have to follow this, but you're gonna see this the reasoning behind it. And so let's make the median, or let's make the 100% and the 5 that color. It's a bright blue. It's orange for a 30-minute chart, 15-minute chart. Excuse me. So we're on a 15-minute chart. We're just gonna make it orange, and then we're going to take the quads, the fibonacci's, and make them orange. And you can stick with the whole scheme here and make your warning lines orange too. It's just the difference on the warning lines, if you're going to use them, is that you can make the warning lines dotted, so you can distinguish between a normal line, excuse me here, okay. So now you can tell the difference between the lower parallel and a warning line because the warning lines are dotted. And if you want to go ahead and make your pitchfork yellow or orange too, you can. I know a lot of people like making it red or something that just stands out a little bit more as the median. And so there we have a pitchfork. Now when we get off to not needing the warning lines and we actually turn them off, once again, we can get our fork positioned a little better. It should not look like that. Okay, it needs to have some size to it, especially if all the trading, let's say, is in here between here and the median line. You can open it up. We can see that it's a Charlie Delta fork, but now we're using almost all the screen to give us the detail that we want. Okay, so hopefully everybody's cool with that. Just using something to make the charts look a little better on your scans and pitchforks look a little better on the charts, especially for posting purposes. And again, I don't want to come down to have to develop community standards for 15-minute scans. Why do we color them a particular color per time period? Well, if I turn visibility on and I have a 60-minute chart and I have a 5-minute chart or a 15-minute chart, I have visibility on. Well, now I see this orange pitchfork on all of those charts. So it doesn't matter what chart period, what time period I'm looking at. If I'm looking at a 1-minute chart and I see an orange pitchfork, then I knew it was drawn on my 15-minute chart. Okay, and we use blue, that bright blue for 30, and kind of a silver, a very bright gray, if you will, for the 1-hour chart. And for the 4-hour charts, we use green. Now, that's just been our standards for years. I'm not saying you guys have to use those standards, but you're going to see them on my charts, and they sure help me as I have layouts and I'm looking between time periods. I can see which time period a particular pitchfork comes from. And so if I need to adjust it over time, I want to make that adjustment on the time period I drew it on. Okay. All right. So let's talk about a few other things. Since I said we were going to talk about scans and forks on the chart, let's talk about your head game. I guess I need a paren here. Your head game and trading, or your trading and your head game. It sounds like the same, but it's not, because we get into a chicken or egg thing situation. So I want to touch on a bunch of subjects here, and bear with me. I didn't have time to spend 4.5 hours preparing slides. I was just looking at a bunch of stuff on charts today, and I wanted to get these points in to maybe provide some insight and get some help as you head into this, for us, 4-day weekend here in the States, and as we then march our way into December to the year end. So the first thing I want to talk about is what I'm seeing a lot of is being married to a trade. There's a lot of reasons this happens. A good example of that would be a pitchfork, a 15-minute pitchfork that's multiple days long. We're down at the far end of the pitchfork, and you haven't taken any trades yet, and it could be a Charlie Delta, could be a Charlie Delta X-ray or a Charlie Delta Best Fit because it's been lasting so long, and all of a sudden you're going to take a trade after 3 days. And there's nothing wrong with that per se, but if the pitchfork has mediocre performance, in other words, oh, I circled a hit on the median line, but yeah, there were 15 other hits on the median line that didn't end in a to the pip fashion. So the fact that I could circle one of them does not sanction that trade being available. So don't get married to taking a trade. That comes from, guess what? Where does that come from? Desperation. Once again, you're trying to go fast. You want to go faster. You want to get to live trading. Partially that happens because you've set expectations, again, in a vacuum, and you alone have decided you should be trading a certain time, and so you're trying to get more trades in, and you're forgetting it's not about a number count, it's about what you learn. So don't be desperate to take a trade. Desperation comes out of impatience. I've been sitting on the chart 2 hours now, and blah blah blah, and woe is me, I better get a trade in. And so you take anything there that's somewhat viable. Somebody made a post today and made some reference to dating or something like that. My guys have heard this before. Back in my college days, it was a pretty rude and crude thing, but we had those dates that were called BTNs. They were our BTNs. Bravo Tango November. And a BTN date it was Friday. We were off Saturday night. We had Town Liberty on Saturday night, and it was Friday, and you still don't have a date. Everybody was tied up, or at other parties, or other towns, which was mostly the case. And so we would, you go down that list in your little black book, if you will. Oh, finally, I'll call Sally Sue, and everybody's like, oh, you're going to go out with Sally Sue? And you go, well, yeah, she's better than nothing. So a BTN is better than nothing. All right, why sit at home on a Saturday night when I can at least be out with Sally Sue? That's how some of you approach your trading, and I can see that. Now, let me back up a little here, because there's a thin line between seeing your demo account as your experimental lab, and of course that is contrasted with, oh, I gotta win, as you would be taught in the old paradigm, where I've seen, oh, it didn't work out as I liked, oh, I've missed 2 in a row, where people are evaluating trades. There's a time and a place when you can treat your demo account as a live account. Once you've had a lot of trades and you think you're ready to go live, well, then we'll have a little challenge session, and we'll go take a bunch of trades and see how you do, as if it was live money. So until then, we don't want to worry about winning and losing. That is true. But at the same time, you have to be careful and remember that we have this simultaneous reality. Remember your potential. Should have got the slide up here so I didn't have to spend time drawing this out. Your potential dictates your actions. And the type of actions you take are going to dictate your results. And what's going to happen with your results is they're going to get sent to your subconscious mind, and they're going to get filtered there, and they're going to then generate your beliefs. And this is the law of spirals. And everything spirals in the counter or the clockwise direction no matter what. And so what happens when you take what I'll say are lottery ticket trades. Now, a lottery ticket trade is one of those, well, let's see what happens. Okay. And it depends on how you process that trade. It's okay in demo trading in your laboratory sometimes to see it that way. Let me take this and see what happens. Okay. Now, what I would say is you should put that in your comments. I wasn't trying to win here. I knew this was a somewhat iffy trade because there were, multiple hits around the line, but only one really good hit. And this is now the 8th hit on that line. I can't trust this line, but I'm just looking at it to establish a trade, to do my money management, etc. See, now you're saying I'm experimenting. But in terms of thinking you're taking a trade per the system, as if it was live money, you would not be taking a lottery ticket trade. Why? Because its results are just like trading the lottery. You're going to lose a whole lot more than you win. So if you have a fork and you're way downstream on it, okay, you're way down here, and let's say, this came up a little higher and was bouncing, and you're circling and taking a trade on that. And well, look, I have a nice hit over here. And oh, look, I have a bounce off of it here. And oh, look, I have a bounce off of it here. Those look like great reasons to justify this trade. No, they're not. Excuse me. They're not. Look at the rest of the fork. How could you trust that? Just because some hit it doesn't mean most of them did. So that's not a trade you would take with live money. And if you take it in your demo account, that's a lottery ticket trade. What I would say, even though your demo account is a experimental lab, rather than getting your cycle of action, results, belief, action, results, potential, belief, potential. Well, I can't get it right. Potential, action, beliefs, and results and beliefs all jumbled up, like I just did. See, because that's going to be confusing to your mind. That takes confidence away from your trading, even in demo mode. So what I would say to somebody who wants to submit a trade like this, and then of course what ends up happening is they lose, minus 6.7 pips or whatever. That gets filed away to your brain, by the way. Rather than taking this trade, I would say, how many other scans are there today? How many other forks are there where you're in the more current view of the fork, where you might have a little bit more reliability with the hits? See, the further you go downstream, the weaker that fork gets. I don't care how good the hits are. Why is that? Because at some point, the channel's going to be broken. And what that means is, in a abstract conceptual way, if we were to take the current point in time and divide it, let's say into segments, and excuse my scaling here, I don't, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, oops, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just again, so so you kind of get the abstract view of what I'm saying. In zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, excuse that 4 sliding on me, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In zone 1, let's say a to the bounce pip, when it's a traditional fork like this, we should be able to take that trade with 90% of surety. And as it continues to move on down being, downstream in time, even if it's an up fork, what ends up happening is, and these are not statistics, I'm just making my point. The longer the fork goes on, even with a perfect to the pip touch, the less chance we have of that actually going in our favor, because at some point that fork's going to be broken in one direction or the other. So I'm not saying we can't take trades further on downstream, but then we have to have a lot of good hits along the way. And we'd rather see an energy point. The farther you go up this fork, the more likely we want to see an energy point. Maybe it's a simple fork Fibonacci from our C. Oh, not going to happen. Well, yeah, we will, because it's going to be 110, and then 161, and then 261.8, and then 361.8, and then, oh, there's the 2.72. And at some point we're going to have a hit in here, either on the median or on our upper parallel, that's going to have an energy point. Now that has a high percentage. But just straight out, the longer the fork, the less chance you have of a perfect bounce acting perfectly. You have to see that. That's why Charlie Delta is so fantastic. Because as soon as the Charlie Delta is formed and we start moving out from the D, we can draw our fork. And we have a chance to catch these zones with the extremely high percentages. So if you come to the charts and you're just putting on your, here's our real-time chart. There's where we are right now, and we just drew this chart on a scan that was left over on our charts. We copied it over because obviously it would be long gone from the harmonic scanner probably. Whether it is or not, but if it's on our charts, and we just drew this fork, see, this is desperation when you're trying to catch it. Your first trade on this Charlie Delta is over here. You don't want to do that. Go find another Charlie Delta. Go find another quickfire trade and try and get those 10 pips, because those are the high percentage. Put a Charlie Delta on it. Try and get to the median. That is the high percentage move. When we're way down here, Andrews has no observation about we've reached the fork, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. For when you breach a fork 7 times and it comes back up and tries to hit the bottom of the fork, you have a 12.2%. There's nothing from Andrews that talks about a bounce here. It is a strong support and resistance. It's full of Fibonacci-ness, so it's stronger than a lot of other things. But in terms of it being as strong as something over here, there's no way. So instead of trying to take this trade, go look for a newer scan and try and do a quick fire trade. Go find a scan that's only, half a day old and try and catch it on a median bounce or a parallel bounce. That's going to give you a lot more percentage than trying to take your very first trade on this fork way down here. This is a lottery ticket trade. And you have to understand that. This is one reason why you move to TradingView charts, so you can have 10 tabs. And whether you put 2 up, 3 up, 4 up, whatever you're putting on your charts in your layout, you can trade enough pairs When I was just Pro Plus, here's what I did. I kept 8 pairs. And then I kept 2 tabs. And I just called them, you might have seen it a couple times, Explore. In other words, I didn't have a dedicated pair for that tab, those 2 tabs. These were fixed, never going to change them. And then these were exploring. So if I'm sitting here and all of a sudden there's a scan that comes up on the euro pound, which is not a pair I normally trade, and its spread is not too bad, I can handle it. Well, now I'll go to my explore tabs, and I don't care what's already there. I'll change that currency pair to euro pound so I can look potentially to see what it looks like. Put the scan on my chart, put my indicators on it, and I'm off and running. So there's enough scans that'll generate enough Charlie Delta and X-ray pitchforks. And of course, you always want to look in front of where you are. Draw forks in front of where you are. We looked at one today like that, I think, with Phil. That was really nice. He nailed the best fit. But if we look in front of that, we might have been able to take the highs and lows, the touches that he had that were what he used to form the best fit. Maybe we could have actually traded those. But this is a desperate trade, guys. This is just desperate trades. It's a lottery ticket trade, and you're going to get lottery ticket results. And it's like, you know the odds. You know this 89.3 off the scan. You know off this point down here, 80% to the median. So why are we messing with trades down here? Go find trades that have this. And even if there aren't any, instead of taking this, don't take it. Wait for one of those higher percentage trades over here. And if there are none, go watch video. Go watch some YouTube and do some self-growth. Go review your notes and sharpen them. Or go play with the family until you get another alert and you can see if you could put a quickfire on it or a Charlie Delta. I'm not saying these aren't tradable. I'm just saying in the scheme of where you are right now, this is going to give you higher percentage. And so go find those. Go find those. So don't be married to a trade. Don't look at a chart, some pitchfork, you just draw it and it's, 5 days old and you don't have anything else cooking, so you're going to try and take that trade. It's a sign of desperation. It's a sign of impatience. You've got false expectations you're trying to make real, and there's a fear of missing out. Some people asking, well, can I trade quickfire on the 1 hour chart? Well, yes, you can. We just did a big video on divergence, and, if you're going to measure divergence, you really have to measure it at the 15-minute level. So drop down with that chart and catch the divergence on the 15-minute level instead of the 60. But it's like, why? You're really telling me with the scans that are available and all of the Charlie Deltas and all of the X-ray Alphas and all of the X-ray Alpha BS, in other words, the pitchforks that were there before the scan. Out of all those various pitchforks, there was not a single trade you can take rather than having to move up to 60 minutes. Fear of missing out, impatience, desperation. I'm pretty sure you could find it, and if not, there you go. Remember, you're going to get better at something. You want your RAS to be the best it can, and that's going to come with focus. Back to those demo accounts. I kind of got a little grizzly the other day on, at the group level, but obviously it was intended for some people. And what was happening is some traders were demo trading. Now, again, we got to be careful with don't confuse the demo account is your laboratory. Demo trade to learn, not to earn, not to win. Don't confuse that with being laissez-faire and, I could do anything in my demo account. It's one thing to say, I'm going to take a trade. I'm supposed to be trading quick fire. I'm supposed to get the green line touch. I'm supposed to get the Bollinger Band touch. I'm supposed to get RSI over 70 under 30. And, I want to see what the divergence is. I only need 2 out of 3, but let me do it. Unless it's a shark, then you need divergence. And you're taking trades, not even knowing what divergence is. I mean, some of you were doing things like, right in your comments. Yeah, I don't even know what, I don't know what it is. I still don't have it down. I still don't understand it. It's still confusing to me. These are repeats of comments. It's like, I don't know. You know, it's like you've got something with a known process and you're multiple choicing the tips, the steps. So you want to know what divergence is. That's what the group's for. Instead of saying, oh, I'm just going to draw it to XD because that's what somebody else did. Even though I was like, don't trade XD, don't trade XD, don't trade XD. People are still doing XD. So if you don't know what you're doing, why take a trade? Why not say, can somebody please show me divergence as Steve drew it? And follow the group directions. If nobody answers that in 24 hours, then you can tag an admin. Then you could tag me. But you should learn divergence before you're trading if your system calls for divergence as one of the criteria. That's just simple. It's impatience to be on the chart. It's impatient to be posting trades. It could be ego. Maybe you're one of those people who just want to see your name out there on the charts in the Facebook group. But there's no reason to be taking trades that use divergence as a criteria and you don't know how to do it. That's not using your demo account as an experimental lab. Experimental lab means, well, I'm curious if the swing before this in the same channel, in that same CD channel, let's say we're coming down, so we're measuring divergence on the lows, how did the previous swing lows look in this channel when it was, here's a touch coming down that's 3 pips away from the line? Did I have divergence then? What about the price movements where it's 5 pips past the line? I showed an example the other night of one of the challenges with using the XD is that you're really measuring an upper level swing, and therefore there's a lot of slush in those upper level moves. And the example I showed was a hit with divergence before the line, at the line, and after the line. Which one do you trust? It's not a very valid criteria if it's showing divergence at all 3 positions. And so you'd want to measure that 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 times. And then you come up and say, hey, I've got a question here. I've looked at 10 trades and I've measured divergence at 3 points, around the green line, 1, 2, or 3 pips short on the line and 1, 2, or 3 pips afterwards. And it doesn't seem to matter. All of them gave me entries. And I'd say, yeah, well, that's probably tight enough of an area where it's close enough. 2 pips before, 2 pips after, you're in a 5 pip zone. That's acceptable. But what if 10 pips before you had divergence, and at the line you had divergence, and 10 pips afterwards you had divergence? It's not a very good tool at that point. Or if that was the case, then you'd say, I'd have to think twice about taking the trade. That's experimenting. But not knowing how to do one of the criteria is not experimenting, guys. Now you're down to lottery ticket trades. Oh, well, I only need 2 out of 3, so I don't even need divergence, so why the heck do I need to learn what it is? That's not going to work. That's not going to work. So don't be married to taking a trade. Don't be desperate. Don't be impatient. Don't be taking it because of false expectation. Oh, I got to get 10 trades in this week or I'm behind schedule. Because all that's going to do is give you a lottery ticket trade. And right now, you don't understand. Right now, you're just thinking, oh, it's a matter of wins, losses. It's not. It's also being recorded in your subconscious mind. Remember what happens with habits. Repetition. And if you repeatedly take lottery ticket trades, your RAS is never going to form properly. You have too much leeway in what your RAS will find acceptable. And when that's the case, your results are going to be terrible. So make sure you understand the difference between a selected trade, it meets your criteria, and lottery ticket trading. There's a thin line between that experimentation, like I said. Oops, which you can control, or you and not impacting results in belief action, and RAS being impacted big ways. So again, sometimes this is going to come down to the trader, but I have to teach at the group level. Some traders are going to be able to take lottery ticket trades. They're going to be able to process it in their head. I know I'm not trading live money. I know I'm really just seeing what happens here. And then they can start to filter the ones that were good and the ones from bad without affecting their RES. Some people can do that. Don't let your ego convince you that you can unless you are one of those people that can. That's the tricky thing with RES and your ego. That's why I recommend don't do it. Lottery ticket trading is going to get you in trouble. It's going to shape your RAS the wrong way. And now you're going to be put in the heat of the moment with a good trade, and your RAS is going to be questioning it because, oh, maybe I should take it now. I've taken it now before and it was okay. You said it was okay to take it before. It's not even measuring the results. It's just what the captain told the crew was okay to do. Okay. Go back. For those of you who've been with me since the beginning in IML TV or close to it, remember when we were first starting to learn pitchforks? I gave you the course, and you guys started going through the course, and you started, drawing forks to say, is this okay? Is that okay? And you had them pointed upside down and on the wrong swings, and you didn't even have the fork going to a swing. And I was like, don't be trying to trade this stuff. You guys are still learning how to use the tool. Remember, I held everybody back. People were getting antsy. I want to trade. I want to demo trade. I want to demo. And I was holding you back. So you'll remember that I had you wait before you started to post those demo trades. So at least understand the fundamental of what you're doing. Understand what demo trading is about. Then start to demo trade. But you're being selective. Selectivity. I'm looking for the Charlie Delta trade soon after that swing low in the fork as I drew it over here. I'm looking to see if it gets to the median. If it does, I'm looking to see if I have a hard bounce. If it bounces off the median or goes through it, does the upper parallel or the lower parallel have a bounce? That's a high percentage trade still. Not 7 days down in the fork where it's already been beached 27 times, but because it's touched it once, that must mean I can take a trade off of it. That's a lottery ticket trade. That's abusing or not using selectivity. So in conclusion there, in terms of the forks, you still want to use criteria. Why taking pitchfork trades on unproven forks or forks with spotty validation? Why take quick fire trades when prices breach the green line significantly? Remember what that green line's about, guys. In the scheme of things, that line represents a bunch of Fibonacci's, right? It represents the BCD Fibonacci retracement. It represents the XBD retracement. It represents the XAB or D retracement. And it represents the XCD retracement. So there's at least 4 lines that are all falling on top of each other at that D. And I'll tell you how you have to treat this. Treat that D. Now, I know our qualifications say it has to hit or breach the D line. But think about it in terms of what made that D line so special for Fibos. That's why it's the most significant swing on the chart. But instead of that being the D line, let's pretend it's a pitchfork line. So the question would be, if that D line was treated as a pitchfork line, would you be taking a trade on it here, or here, or here, or here? See, this is selectivity. Quickfire says, if it hits the line and breaches it, and all my other criteria are fine, I should take that buy. If this green line was this line, we say I should take it right there. What about right there? What about right there? We say, well, that quickfire trade, or more so the scan, is viable until that scan exceeds its stop loss. But think of it in terms of selectivity. What makes this bottom parallel on a pitchfork strong? It was drawn from a swing low that had all sorts of Fibonacci-ness on it. That's why this line kind of glows. I wish I could not just make it neon green, but make it a vibrating neon green. It has Fibonacci-ness to it. My term. So does that Fibonacci-ness on the lower pitchfork line also extend down here, or down here, or down here? Where are you going to call it? See, that's desperation. When you're taking trades down here, well, all my qualifications there, it hit, it breached, or went through. It made contact with or went through my Fibonacci line, my green line. And I had into Bollinger's, and I got RSI below 30, and I got divergence. Super duper trade. It's like, wait a second. What about this trade where price hits the line? And I'm talking maybe 1 pip on the other side and 1 pip on this side on a 15-minute scan. Those are the ones that are going to have you 89.33% return. Somebody's saying, well, I'm getting nowhere near that. And I notice he hasn't been around lately. Kind of asked him to leave, and maybe he did, or maybe he's just being quiet. Don't know. There were a couple of them. Didn't want to post their trades. I bet if I saw them, their trades wouldn't be trades that were taken at the line. That's your ideal trade, guys. That's being selective. Well, Steve, none of the scans I had today had that, so, what am I supposed to do? I got that 5 pips per day goal I want to make. Wait for them. They'll be there. Maybe you get 2 tomorrow, and one goes 10 and one goes 20. Big channel, 15% of it was 18 pips. So you make, 28 pips tomorrow. Don't worry about getting your 5 today. You go try and trade with selectivity. That's what you want to do. And that's what see, when you trade with selectivity, you're going to have the same ability to trade each time. Then you will know KSP. You're not going to get KSP with one time you have a trade on the line. The next time you take a trade short of the line just because criteria was there. Whoops. You know, price was, 4 pips away. I better take it, starting to move back. And another trade that comes through it, no, it's shy of the stop loss, but starts moving back up. This is not KSP. You know why? Because you're going to get different results for each one of these, and you can't combine them. You can't combine the results of that trade and that trade and that trade and come up with a percentage number. This is the trade you want. That's the one, when qualified, is going to give you the best results. So be selective. That's the one you want to take. You don't want to train yourself that you can slide around with this criteria, because you'll do the same thing down the road. You're planting a seed in your mind. Your RAS is going to do it. You've already told it it's okay to do. Your crew's very loyal. They're going to duplicate this in the future. Wait for the price to hit the line and bounce. And that's when the criteria is there. That's when you make that trade. The other thing is, go looking before price comes down to the D. So if the Sydney, hey, he's over there having a little grunt and growl nightmare. See if you can validate this green line with something else. A pitchfork, BS before the scan. Something coming down. All of the Fibos on this, all the Fibos on this scan were short term. They all started, with the relationship with this move from X to A. So there's your first Fibo move. And then there's another, and another, and another, and then we can layer on top. But all the Fibos involved in this scan are right in there. Go out to your 60-minute chart and do a Fibo on the last big swing. That's all inclusive. What do I mean by all inclusive? What I mean by all inclusive, if I'm in this CD, what is the all inclusive Fibo that I want to be looking at is this one right here. All inclusive because we're dealing with horizontal lines. All inclusive means everything from that swing high and everything from this swing low still control price. Price hasn't left its field. So my 38, my 50, my 61.8, from this, you can maybe see it on this time period. I would drop up to an hour, and you want to take the biggest swing that still includes all this stuff. And this will be in force until price breaches the top or the bottom of this Fibonacci. So maybe you do something like that to get more validation for your D line. Okay. Maybe this is perfectly, 14.6. Look for something. Something that's always frequently overlooked is the trend line from D back to X and wherever it goes. Okay, in this case, we might be close, we might be right on it. So if that's, if I have a green line somewhere in there, it's not, the D's not painted. Well, the D's painted, but we might not be at the green line yet. But you can look back and say, well, I have this one here, and I have this one here, and therefore you could draw your trend line, and it goes right through your green line. When price comes down to it, that's an energy point. So it gives me, an understanding of this is the candle, not this one here, because this one here wouldn't have met that swing, that trend line. So do something if you can to validate that line. If you can't, as price is coming down to the line, then you want it to be as close to an exact hit as you can. Not 5 pips past it. And then you have the truly married to the scan where you take it early, you get stopped out, you take it again at the scan and get stopped out, and it's still dropping down, and you're still considering getting back in that trade. And it's like, ding, 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 what happened to the fact that there's other scans over there? You should have other Charlie Delta forks drawn on the other scans. So no matter what pair you're looking at, there's already a Charlie Delta fork on it if you've got a scan painted on the charts. And if you got a Charlie Delta, you better have an X-ray alpha. So there's so many more trades that are going to be higher percentage than trying to get a second or third trade off this D that keeps moving on you. Hope that makes sense. So just be a little selective. So your actions will impact the results you get, which impact belief. Remember, the law of spirals is real, and it occurs whether you acknowledge it or not. Repeated actions become habits. So the way you demo trade in attitude, I'm not talking about, it's okay to use an experimentation lab, but your attitude should not be, laissez-faire. It doesn't matter when I win or lose. Steve said, I'm not here to win, I just want to learn. So you try to, kind of turn the objective to meet what you're doing, because what you're doing isn't really what you should be doing. So the attitude you take into your demo trading about selectivity, about multiple confirmations, is very important, because it's going to carry over to your live trading. You're making impressions. Every time you do something, you're making an impression in your subconscious mind. And when you start doing this, when you start taking lottery ticket trades, you're going to even have more self-development work to do. All right, that's it. Just wanted to touch up on a few of those things that should tighten up some of your trades. In terms of posting, remember, let's not have blue and purple backgrounds shaded on a scan or on a pitchfork. We don't need the background areas on the pitchfork. It's cutesy on white charts, but it's distracting on black background charts. Consider a color scheme. So if I see this chart anywhere on a 1 hour, on a 1 minute, on a 3 minute, I know it's a 15-minute scan or a 15-minute pitchfork because it's orange. And if it's white, then I know it's a 60-minute scan. And if it's blue, well, we don't have 30-minute scans right now in here. If it's 4 hour, then it would be green. Now, somebody asked, can I trade quick fire on 60-minute, and then of course, if we say yes to that, they're going to be asking, can I trade quicker on a 4 hour? I think it's a mistake. Of course, you're a trader, you're your own trader, you can do what you want. I think there's enough trades between the quick fire, between the Charlie Delta, between the X-ray. What are 60-minute scans and 4-hour scans really good for? They're for finding BS pitchforks. I love that. Before the 15-minute scan. They will help show you what the big pitchforks look like. So if I draw a Charlie Delta off a 4-hour trade, guess what? I've got a traditional pitchfork on a larger fork. I've got a fork in place that, as long as price action is moving, as if this was a 60-minute fork, a 60-minute scan, then I've got a pitchfork, traditional, that my next scan should appear inside of. Does that make sense? So could you trade 60-minute quick fire on a 60-minute trade? I wouldn't do it personally with what you have, but I would draw the Charlie Deltas from those 60-minute forks, from those 60-minute scans, because they're going to give you BS pitchforks. They're going to give you the pitchforks before the scan. So you have so much work, so much set. Remember, trading is 90% setups. You guys are trying to flip it around. You're trying to catch a trade on every fork and then force that fork or force that scan into a trade rather than setting traps. Quickfire, it uses the scan. That's a trap trade. Pitchforks, Charlie Delta, X-Ray Alpha, those are traps. You're not hunting trades. You're waiting for the trade to come to you. So don't try and flip it around. Don't try and force a trade that isn't there, just out in randomness. That becomes a habit. That will be your trading results. It'll be inconsistent. All right. So my critiques are going to get stronger as we move between Christmas and Thanksgiving. Between Thanksgiving and Christmas. By starting next week into the winter holidays. Let me say it that way. So be selective. Be smart about your trades. I'm going to start hitting you on this. Got to, you know, not being grizzly, just we've got more to follow now. And so I have to repeat it, repeat it, repeat it to make sure you got it. All right. I'll see you guys next week.